All right. So thanks so much again for doing this. First question that I had for you is tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the community.
My name's Dr. Beth Fields. I'm an occupational therapist and an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I am a geriatric health services and caregiving researcher. So I'm really interested in helping older adults and their family member and friends do the things that they want, need, and love to do. And how I got started. So I originally was always interested in healthcare, and I did some clinical observations of different provider types, and really fell in love with therapy's approach to care. So we really are focused on helping people again do things that they want, need, and love to do, and making sure that while doing those things that they do so in a safe, comfortable, and independent manner. And we're really good at task analysis, or activity analysis. So if there's something, that a client wants to do, we ask them why is that activity important to them? What are some of the barriers to doing those activities? And then we brainstorm with the client or their family and friend that's involved too, to figure out ways to adapt or modify that activity to get them back to doing that thing they love. And
Hmm.
I worked in home healthcare before transitioning into the academia. And I've really now started to view my research as my practice. I love getting to do human subjects research and help improve the quality of care and life of those that are participating in our research and hopefully beyond.
Hmm. My next question is, what sorts of things do you do in your current role as an academic and yeah.
Yeah, so as an academic, I'm on a tenure track. So primarily my time is focused on research activities. We also have teaching and service responsibilities. So I teach a few courses in our clinical occupational therapy doctoral program here at UW-Madison. And then service in the academia space can really vary. So I sit on some different committees, for example, to help move things forward in the institution.
Hmm. What about as an occupational therapist? What's the role, what's the day-to-day like?
Yeah. So right now my day-to-day in academia looks different than when I worked in home health. So I'll speak to my practice when I was in home health. So day to day, I worked for an agency and I would get called and shared a referral, and then I would call different clients and schedule an initial evaluation. And those evaluations would take about 60 minutes or so. And during those evaluations, I would meet with people in their home and get an idea of their current level of function. So how are they doing or performing the things that they need to do in their home environment? So what is their level of independence for, bathing, dressing, cooking? Are they able to leave their home in a safe manner? I would also identify some safety concerns when I would go through their home. So thinking about ways to prevent falls from happening for individuals in the home environment. And then after that evaluation, and the evaluation is really entails both some subjective and objective information. So objective, really having people show me how they do things, so performance-based assessments. And then more subjective, so getting to know that client and asking them, what their goals are for care, and building some rapport and enhancing the relationship between the client and the practitioner. And then based on that initial assessment, then I would develop a plan of care. And oftentimes, people could be seen anywhere between, 4 visits to 12 visits, depending on what their goals were and what we were hoping to achieve within the occupational therapy home health um, space. And then
Mm-hmm.
after they've met their goals, then I would go in and do a discharge. And during the discharge process, making sure that we address their goals. If we weren't able to address their goals, making sure that the client um, had proper services and supports and resources to help them maintain their function independence in a safe way at home.
Mm-hmm. So what methods or approaches do you use when like because you like you said you're in academia and you're in that setting now. So like what methods or approaches do you sort of teach your students in like in the classes that you teach?
Yeah, great question. So, I actually just got done teaching a summer course that was focused on population health and wellness. So, really helping our students expand their thinking beyond the individual client to understand how systems of care and and social determinants of health can impact people or individuals' ability to do the things they need and want and love to do. So, through the population health and wellness course, I taught our students about different frameworks and public health frameworks and models. What are the social determinants of health and how those can impact individuals, groups, and systems. And then what are some ways to evaluate those systems versus individuals and show impact of occupational therapy in that space. So I can give an example if that would be helpful. So one example, let's see, that we talked about this summer is social determinants of health. One of the determinants is social context, and community. And since COVID, the use of different electronic sources and social media platforms has grown. So there has been some policy and news media around the influence of social media on mental health of adolescents in particular. So we talked about, thinking about social media companies and the settings that are involved and parental oversight and privacy and all the things that you're hearing in the media and laws that are being considered and enacted in different states and how that can impact a person's health. So we talked about how OTs could approach social media usage in a school system. And one of our groups developed a curriculum focused that could be integrated as part of a health course for middle school aged students. And talking about the use of time diaries to help you understand how much energy and time is being spent on like Instagram, for example, and rating your mood during the time that you're spending on Instagram during and after, and seeing if there's a change over time as like one example of how OTs could help students in the school system think more broadly about technology use and its impact on health.
Mm-hmm. My next question is, what impact does your work as an academic have on the greater community? In other words, like how does teaching this stuff to like your students help sort of them understand, how to, address, the disability community?
Yeah, so when I'm teaching students, I want them to come away feeling confident in the skills and the assessments that they're learning. And I want them to feel comfortable working with people across the lifespan, and with all sorts of ability levels. And I think having conversations with, you know, direct conversations with community members and people from different communities is really important. So I've tried to bring in guest speakers, that can talk about their lived experiences. We here at UW-Mass, and we have a pro bono clinic where students are able to practice some of their hands-on skills. And, as part of our clinical occupational therapy doctoral degree, students complete different types of fieldwork experiences in different settings and with different populations. I think that the most important thing when students graduate, my hope is that they feel confident in their abilities. But then also if they're unsure of something, that they know what resources to go to and really keep the core of occupational therapy at the core, or let that guide their future practice. So when I say that, I think it's really important that OTs remember to keep the occupation and occupational therapy. So no matter what population or setting you're working in, I think as occupational therapists, we really, I want our students to approach an individual, group, or a system in a way that's more holistic. So thinking about what is it that that person wants to do, needs to do, loves to do, how is their environment affecting their ability to do that thing? And then, what is it that they want to do? So if, for example, I'll give an example like bike riding. If a young kiddo you're working with really wants to learn how to bike ride, thinking about like, what does their environment look like? Do they have the financial means to even purchase a bike? So thinking about like economic stability as a social determinant of health. If they do have the economic stability to purchase a bike, then thinking about like breaking down the task of riding a bike, like what are the steps associated? You have to have certain skills, like fine and gross motor skills to be able to put on a helmet. You have to have maybe social support there when you're not there as a practitioner to encourage, the continuous repetition and practice of learning how to ride a bike. So there's lots of pieces that I think need to be considered, and that to me is really the powerful aspect that OTs bring. And I hope through our curriculum that our students really see that integration of all, like the person, the environment, and the occupation as centerfold.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, to kind of wrap this up, what can people take away from this conversation? How can, this type of work help people entering the OT field, like gain an understanding of what it is and like what they want to do? Because like you said, OT, it's very broad and it involves a variety of things. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think with any healthcare professional, you need to know, the history of your profession. What are those theories and frameworks and models that guide clinical practice, and then always turning to, the evidence-based to inform your plan of care. So thinking about, what evidence is there to support some type of assessment you select to work with a population? What type of evidence is available to support utilizing some type of treatment versus another treatment, to make sure you're going to get the outcomes that you're seeking to get for your client. I think a lot of people feel that you're trained as a generalist to start because we have to cover so much in a short amount of time, but there's always opportunities once you get out into practice to really specialize and hone in on a certain practice setting, certain treatment, certain population you want to work with. So for example, when I was in occupational therapy school, I always knew I liked working with the older adult population. But that was we only got a little taste of it in our curriculum. But then after I graduated and started practicing more with that population and developing some skills and strategies, um, then I went back to our American Occupational Therapy Association and became board certified in gerontology, to really demonstrate that I do have some of this like knowledge, an area of expertise specifically for the older adult population. So I think for anyone who's wanting to go into occupational therapy, it's important to, um, you know, get that foundational training that you need to help you think, like an OT, and to be able to work across settings and across populations. But then if you want to specialize, by all means specialize and pursue additional training, through continuing education, or through certifications, or reading up in the literature.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good, useful information. Mhm.
Yeah.